Hey, it's your girl, the Venusian Bull, back to continue talking about Cancer. Mars in Cancer in particular. And Mars is actually in its fall when it's in Cancer. And I know a lot about this energy because where do I happen to have my Mars? In Cancer. And let me tell you something about Mars in Cancer. The struggle is real. It's just a really unsettling place to have a Mars because it's about, taking action, taking a hold of what you feel is yours, what you strive towards. It has to do with your drive and your willpower. And Mars in Cancer, it puts Mars in a very difficult predicament. Because remember what I said about Mars having to deal with aggression and things of that nature? Remember how I said that Cancer energy is very emotional and moody and things like that? So that aggression, you put that Mars in Cancer, it could be pretty destructive when it comes to when they are upset and things of that nature. So very temperamental, Mars in Cancer, very sensitive, which could make it difficult for them to be able to take actions in life and the things that they want. I know that it's been difficult for me. I'll have a whole video where I break down my natal chart and my placements and things like that. But Mars in Cancer, since Cancer energy has to deal with how you feel and feeling it in the moment, Mars in Cancer won't just do it like in Aries. That should be the motto for Aries. Just do it, particularly Mars in Aries. Mars in Cancer has to feel it. It has to be the right mood, has to be the right time. So if they're embarking on a new project or a new business venture or something like that, they're not just going to be I'm just going to do this. They're going to be I need to wait till I feel right, the chakras need to be aligned and all of that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's very, Mars in Cancer. Although on the upside, it does produce a good storytelling, because Cancer energy is good for storytelling, intuitive nature. It would denote somebody who is interested in the occult, because all the water signs kind of have that energy where they would lean towards the occult. So the thing about a Mars in Cancer is that they have to do things that they're passionate about. If they're not passionate about it, it's going to be half-assed. Whereas a Mars in Capricorn, if it can get them to the top, then they're going to do it. It's not so much about passion with Capricorn energy as much as it is with Cancer, which is why they're opposites. You know what I'm saying? Because Cancer energy wants that emotional and financial security, but they also want to do something career-wise that they're passionate about. And Capricorn is just about it. I don't want to say just about, but Capricorn energy is a lot about climbing that corporate ladder, or it's about being that CEO of your own business. And I'm not saying that Capricorn energy, they wouldn't do something that they're passionate about. I'm just saying that Capricorn energy doesn't necessarily have to do something that they're passionate about in order to succeed. Mars in Cancer, however, if they're not passionate about something, then they're going to half-ass it. They're not going to feel like doing it, and they're going to put it off for long periods of time. In terms of the sexual nature of a Mars in Cancer, it would be very, sensual, giving, very nurturing, just the Cancer energy, would be, and just like the Cancer energy is, and just that emotional security is important in a sexual nature when it comes to a Mars in Cancer. So wouldn't be that good with the casual sexual encounters, because they feel too much. They develop feelings too much. See, this is the problem with Mars in Cancer. Feelings get in the way too much of taking action and doing what you need to do. That is the biggest issue, in my opinion, with the Mars in Cancer. If our feelings didn't get so wrapped up into stuff, we'd be able to accomplish stuff, because Mars in Cancer, people are so creative. But if they can't channel that creativity in a positive way, then it's just going to kind of fall on deaf ears. So that's Mars for you. I'm going to try to get through these next planets a little bit more quickly because these are the outer planets. So, we have Jupiter, and Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and it's traditional, and it also rules Pisces traditionally. So Jupiter is a sign of luck and expansion, of optimism. When I think of Jupiter, I think of be optimistic. As long as you keep your head to the sky. So, like, that's like the theme song when I think about Jupiter, particularly Jupiter in Sagittarius, because it is the sign of optimism. It is the sign of, it's also the planet of excess, but that could be excess in a good way, like excess of money, but it can also be excess of like food, excess of like drugs and alcohol. So take that with a grain of salt. But Jupiter is considered like a benefic planet, so a beneficial planet. So if aspected well, it can bring you luck. Like Jupiter to me is like that planet of when preparation meets opportunity. That's Jupiter to me. You know what I mean? Like that's how Jupiter comes about and things like that. But it could just be like straight up, luck. If you have Jupiter aspected well, you might be the person that always, wins big at the casino or in the lottery or something like that. You may be the person who like doesn't always have like a consistent job or something like that, but always tends to kind of have money or fall into money. Like money just like happens to fall into your lap if you have Jupiter aspected well, or Jupiter in Sagittarius or Pisces. Again, take it with a grain of salt. It depends on the aspects in your chart, but Jupiter is very jovial. It's very giving, and it's very happy. It's about higher learning, and it's about living life to the fullest and everything like that, particularly when it comes to Jupiter in Sagittarius. Transit wise, we have Jupiter in Scorpio, and Jupiter, I don't really think like Scorpio that much, but Jupiter will be in Sagittarius come like October or November, so I'm kind of excited about that because it'll be transiting my first house, so I'm hoping for good things with that Jupiter in Sagittarius, crossing my fingers. But I just would say when it comes to Jupiter, think luck, think expansion, think higher learning. Also, Jupiter does have to deal with religion. So you can think of like reverends, preachers and things like that may have prominent like Jupiter placements and things like that in their chart. So since Jupiter rules Sagittarius, that means that it is in its detriment in Gemini. And and then this is like the total opposite of like the Mercury thing, because Mercury rules Gemini and it's in its detriment in Sagittarius. And this is kind of because, like I said before, Jupiter is kind of like, it's about looking at the big picture and seeing, the big picture of life. In Gemini is about the details and things like that, particularly Jupiter in Gemini. And also when it comes to the religious part, because Jupiter can kind of lack a moral compass a little bit, and Jupiter represents more morals. So Jupiter in Gemini will question. I happen to have Jupiter in Gemini. That doesn't mean that I have loose morals per se. Somebody in Jupiter in Gemini can have loose morals, but it depends on how it's aspected. But I'm just saying the energy of it. But Jupiter in Gemini will question a lot of things. Definitely question like religion and, different like spiritual practices and things of that nature. So while Jupiter in Sagittarius is kind of like very preachy and is kind of on this ideal, and Gemini is more logical and rational and things of that nature. So Jupiter, like, it just can't expand and be that happy, like jovial person that it is when it's in Gemini, because Gemini is, too focused on all of the little nitpicky things. So like I said before, Jupiter also rules Pisces. So that means that it is in its detriment in Virgo. And that makes a lot of sense because like I said, Jupiter is a very jovial, very happy, very exuberant, lively planet. And Virgo is kind of, ho-hum, kind of like introverted, kind of, can be like a Debbie Downer a little bit, and just, not that fun energy that you want to be around. It doesn't represent, Jupiter and things like that. So Jupiter is exalted, I believe, I had to think about this for a second. I believe it is exalted in Cancer. Yes, it is exalted in Cancer. So Jupiter in Cancer, I like to think of it as food. That's like the big potluck. That's like grandma bringing all of the family and everybody together to have this big potluck. So when it comes to giving, it's all about the mother giving, everything like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm going to a show real quick, but I don't know if anybody watches Pose. I love that show. It's renewed for season 2. It just finished season 1. But the character Blanca, she gives me Jupiter in Cancer vibes because she's a mother and Cancer is the mother, and Jupiter is about giving to your children and to children that aren't necessarily yours biologically. It's like giving to everybody. Like everybody can have a seat at the table with Jupiter in Cancer. So you can kind of overextend yourself with Jupiter in Cancer, but Jupiter in Cancer is a very giving person, whereas Jupiter is in its fall in Capricorn. So Jupiter in Capricorn is kind of like Jupiter in Virgo in a sense. It's going to kind of be ho-hum. It's going to kind of be a Debbie Downer. It's not going to have that jovial, exuberant type of energy because Capricorn energy is not a particularly happy energy. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So Jupiter in Capricorn, Jupiter isn't going to be able to express itself the way that it wants to and be that happy, go-lucky person in Capricorn. And another thing, because Jupiter has to deal with the spiritual and religion, Capricorn energy has to deal with more of the material side of life. So that can also be in conflict when your Jupiter is in Capricorn because you may not have a real connection to the spiritual. Again, we're talking about outer planets here. So this may not have an individual effect on you unless it's in contact with a personal planet like your sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, or Mars. So definitely keep that in mind. This is a little bit more circumstantial and generational and things like that. So moving right along to Saturn. So Saturn rules Capricorn. So Saturn, I really have a love-hate relationship with Saturn as an energy. I actually happen to have Saturn in Capricorn. So it's in its rulership, but Saturn is the teacher. Saturn is about teaching lessons. Saturn is about responsibility, discipline. Saturn isn't really about anything fun per se. It's about, the steady, climb, like not, cutting corners and things of that nature. Oh, I forgot to mention, Jupiter is like your rich grandfather, and Saturn is like the strict grandfather that don't let you get away with nothing. Saturn represents like your elders and things of that nature. So with Saturn being in the Capricorn, and Capricorn energy obviously is very similar to Saturn. It's very much about, discipline and hard work and striving to be your best and building that legacy and things like that. But when you're not taking advantage of the lessons that Saturn is trying to teach you, you will learn the hard way. And I'm definitely understanding that. I am approaching my Saturn return. I may do I'm going to have to do a video on my Saturn return because it is coming up in January of 2019. So it's basically when your Saturn comes right back around, and all the planets have a return. There's a Mercury return, Jupiter return, Venus return, but Saturn return is significant because it happens when you've basically reached, that 30 years of life, 29 to 30 years. So you start to experience that Saturn return about 28 to 30 or something like that. So I'm right at that. So yeah, it's about to be a bitch up in this bitch. So that's Saturn in Capricorn. It's like not a lot of good stuff to say about it, is that except for the fact that I guess I have a good sense of like responsibility, that Saturn in Capricorn type of energy. So I'm going to move into where it's in detriment.